Good afternoon. It is 1:33, and I'll call this meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority to order and ask clerk please call the roll to establish a quorum.
Good afternoon, members. Member Frost? Here. Guerra? Here. Hume? Here. Carpenzi-Costa?
Present.
Kennedy?
Here.
Maple?
Here.
Rodriguez? Here. Santu?
Here.
Cerna?
Here.
Spees?
Present.
Katie Valenzuela? Here. And you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I'd ask Member Sandu to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please read the announcements and instructions for public comment and how to view the meeting?
Yes. This meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T UVerse cable systems. This meeting is closed captioned and live streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting replays Sunday, August 13th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. This meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com/MetroCable14. To make an in-person public comment, please complete a speaker request form and hand it to the clerk. The chairperson will call your name when it is your turn to make a comment. To make a comment by phone, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item, off agenda matter. Clerk staff will transfer each caller into the meeting. You may be on hold for an extended period of time, and your patience is appreciated. You may also send written comments by email to boardclerk@saccounty.gov. Your comments will be routed to the board and filed in the record. And that concludes the announcements.
Okay, thank you. So then we'll move on to our off-agenda public comment. These are for items that don't appear on the agenda. Do we have any public comment, off-agenda public comment?
I did not. There's no one in the queue, and I did not receive any public comment slips.
Okay, and I don't see anybody raising their hand out in the chambers. So we'll move on now to our executive director's report. Mr. Busey.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Okay, let's go through the executive director's report. So SB1 funding round and awards and Measure A projects, we talked about this at the last meeting, but I wanted to go back to that. So at the June 28, 29, 2023 CTC meeting, the following three Measure A projects received funding as part of the competitive Senate Bill 1 program. $25 million for the US 50 Gold Line Corridor Enhancement Project, $10 million for the SAC I-5 Managed Lanes Project, and $3 million for the Grant Line Road Safety and Freight Mobility Project. So for both the SAC I-5 Managed Lanes Project and the Grant Line Road Safety and Freight Mobility Project, they were actually going to receive additional Measure A funds in our annual budget that was approved in June. These awards happened after that. So basically, STA staff has requested a meeting on both projects to determine the need for these Measure A funds in light of the new state grant funds. The other item I want to cover is the ongoing Measure A 5-year MOUs. So in June, the STA Governing Board completed an effort started in March to receive presentations from the County of Sacramento, all of the cities, SAC-RT, Paratransit, and Sac Metro Air Quality Management District on their use of Measure A funding on an ongoing basis for essentially 5 years. And through a variety of actions at the STA Governing Board, beginning in March and through June, we approved all these items. So I wanted to kind of close the loop on that. So with all those MOUs now executed, all those actions by the board will allocate approximately $740 million in Measure A funding over the next 5 years to those agencies, and those are our ongoing funds, which represents about 80% of our funding. And in the executive director's report, I've kind of provided a listing of all the agencies that received funding. Moving on to the SACOG regional funding round working group. So in March, SACOG began the process of updating its competitive regional funding round, utilizing 2 working groups with meetings through August of 24. The first working group is at the SACOG board level with Supervisor Desmond representing Sacramento County. And the second working group is at the staff level with myself, planning directors, and public work directors meetings essentially looking at a similar working group. So those meetings have ramped up from quarterly to monthly, and I just want to make sure the board is aware of my role in those meetings, but I will continue to advocate and assist our partner agencies in discussions with the intent of ensuring that, Sacramento County receives their fair share of federal and state funds. I want to note, though, that there is an anticipated new countywide level prioritization effort that will be included in the upcoming SACOG funding round. I think SACOG is still working on that, but SDA has traditionally filled this role in the past of doing the countywide prioritization. So I'll continue to provide these updates in my executive direction report. And the final item I have is the Freeway Service Patrol procurement. So staff is preparing a RFQ to tow providers, essentially to provide roadside assistance and towing service through SAC Metro Freeway Service Patrol. The purpose of the RFQ is to establish a list of interested companies that meet our qualifications, and then we will present the results of that RFQ in the next few months. And with that, that is my executive director's report. Thank you all for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Director Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. And Kevin, I already, reached out to you on, following up on that last part of your report. I just wanted to give an anecdotal instance in which a county supervisor was driving down I-5 on the way to work on a busy Tuesday morning. Actually, his wife was driving him because he's still blind. And we had a blowout on I-5 during rush hour, and we're in a very precarious, and let's just say my wife was somewhat concerned, would be, to put it mildly, with trucks going by us at 65 miles per hour within inches of my car, which is a Mini Cooper, which is disconcerting in itself. Called AAA, and AAA reached out to the FSP, and they were there within 8 minutes. Had our car up on a flatbed during rush hour, got us off the freeway and in safety. This guy had ice going through his veins. How he could walk into traffic the way he did, and they do it on a regular basis. So, and then I look at the door and I see STA and SACOG's logos on that door, and I thought, okay, so, I did good. No, thank you all for your staff and for a program that is unheralded and people don't talk a lot about. The chair and I have talked about it, and him in his former life was, well aware of the concerns and issues. Thank you very much, and please pass on to your staff that, they're doing a fantastic job quietly and really saving lives.
I really appreciate that. And let's thank Jen Dahl for managing that program for us. Thanks, Jen.
Yes, good job. Thank you, Director Kennedy. That used to be my office there on the side of the road. Okay, any other comments from directors? I don't see any on the phone. Alma?
We do not have any public comments.
And no other comments from directors?
No one here in chambers.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. Are there any directors who would like to remove an item from consent or pull it for discussion?
Move consent, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Who was the second?
Me.
Director Rodriguez. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
We do not have any public comment on any of the items on consent.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Please vote from your... and the motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 7.
Item number 7 is to approve the refunding of the 2009C, 2014A, and 2015A series bonds and debt policy update and related matters. This was an item that was continued from June 16th, item number 11.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Dustin.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and Board of Directors. I'm Dustin Purinton, the STA Accounting Manager. So staff is proposing the adoption of a resolution authorizing the full or partial termination or refunding of the 2009C, 2014A, and 2015A series bonds. That's the $318 million of variable rate debt that STA has outstanding, and terminating the related swap agreements in a transaction not to exceed a net present value cost of $15 million or 4.71% of the refunded principal. So that gives us a cap to go up to. And staff is also proposing an update to the debt policy. And I'd like to note a minor change that was proposed after the posting previously. Page 6, Section 7E, the additional bonds test should state 200%. This change is more conservative than the previously stated 180%. The threshold gives us a limit to the new debt service that the authority can undertake. And this new debt policy also adds an annual overview of the bond debt that will be presented to the board of directors at a regular meeting. And this will include refinancing opportunities and other summary level information. The bond refinancing project team is in attendance to answer any questions that you might have on the documents provided in the board present package. And with that said, I'm going to continue on with Peter Schellenberger's presentation. All right, so we're going to quickly go over a lot of things that you've seen a couple of times to this point. We're going to talk about the swap termination, the refunding, and we'll get started here. So there are many pros and cons to this refinancing. What we're proposing is refunding all of the variable rate debt, so $318.3 million, and repaying the $29.4 million in termination costs to eliminate the swaps. As you've probably seen, interest rates have been rising, so our termination costs and the swaps have actually been decreasing, and our position has improved since the last time that we brought this to the board. And we are going to we're proposing setting a call on the new bonds to refinance them in 2033 for potential debt savings. The intent is to break even or come in positive with the refinancing. So the pros are eliminating all the variable rate debt in the interest rate swaps, simplify our portfolio, and reduce some of the banking risk that we have with our outstanding liquidity arrangements. And this provides us some flexibility to refund in the future for approximate savings of $15.2 million. The cons are this will cost us money initially that we should be able to refinance and save money in the long run. So the current cost as of the preparation of this presentation was $8.5 million, and that was, I believe, on Friday last week. And that's a net present value. The net present value through 2039 is 2.68% of the refunded principal. So like I mentioned previously, the 4.71 is our cap. Right now we're at 2.68. And this is going to reduce a little bit of the funding in the CIP program, at least interimly, until we start getting into that refunding. So this is a summary of the net present value and the debt service over the course of the proposed refunding. Again, it's going to increase debt service $8.5 million with this refunding. And again, it's 2.68% of the refunded principal, so we're within our guidelines. The new bonds, the intent is to refund them in 2033. If all things remain consistent with history, we should have an opportunity to do that with interest rate levels over a 20-year average have actually been in a position where we can recoup all of that, the negative savings. So this covers our future bond refunding. I mentioned the 20-year average for the break even. So to break even at Friday's levels, we would have to recoup $8.5 million, which over the 20-year average, we have some room there. I think that puts us at 1.35% or 135 basis points over the 20-year average. So that gives us a little bit of wiggle room with the refunding and breaking even.
Dustin, let me
Yes.
just interrupt here. Director Guerra. You want to wait till the presentation? Okay.
All right. So the recommended refunding authority, the resolution that we presented to you gives us that cap of not to exceed $15 million or 4.71. To give you an explanation of what that percentage cap actually means. So the primary approach would be to refund everything, and right now that's 2.68%. The secondary approach is if costs increase substantially over the next week before we get everything tied up. then we would be capped at 4.71%. So to give you a presentation of that, if we refunded $200 million at a net present value savings of $9.4 million in this savings cost, that would be our cap at $200 million. All right, I'll pause for questions.
Director Guerra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, thank you again, and I understand that this is we're presented with the trade-off here about yes, we're going to have a higher debt service here, but if we refinance in 2033, then we'll hopefully end up on the positive. Let's be optimistic here. But my concern that I had brought up before, and maybe maybe this is. If there's some reason why in our resolution we can't spell out that the authority will review at least in 2033, at least a good chunk of us may not be here in 2033. I don't know, Don Natoli set a pretty good standard there, of how long you could be on this STA board. But I guess that's my only concern is that we're presented with the resolution that doesn't make that action happen in 2033. Now, my understanding, at least from talking to staff, as a matter of practice, we're looking at this on a yearly basis and looking at options and opportunities. But this is all predicated on the fact that we take an action in 2033. So I guess maybe if staff can comment on that aspect.
Yes, so we addressed that in the debt policy itself. We added a section to have an annual review of the positions, our debt positions, and any potential refinancing opportunities. So this is going to become a regular thing that we bring to the board for at least review of where we're at and what potential is out there.
Okay, very good then. Well, with that, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and, if there's no public comment, then I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second by Director Rodriguez. I don't see any other board members or directors in the queue here. Anybody on Zoom?
We do not have anyone online, and I did not receive any speaker requests.
No public comment either?
No.
Okay, well, thank you, Dustin, for the presentation, and Director Guerra, thank you for your comments. Please vote.
And the motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay, move on to item 8.
Item number 8 is to adopt a resolution delegating authority to the executive director to execute agreements with federal, state, or regional agencies in order to receive or disperse federal or state grant funds on behalf of the Sacramento Transportation Authority partner agencies.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, before I start that item, I wanted to ask the chair if you would like
I was going to make some kind of flippant remark, but I won't. No, please proceed.
Okay, we won't have Peter represent that. All right, so appreciate that. So I'm going to do a presentation on federal and state grant funding agreements for partner agencies, which is part of this item. So federal and state grant funds really help leverage Measure A funds. And so in the last about 6-7 years, there's been an increase in federal and state competitive grant funds. So you've got Senate Bill 1 that occurred in 2017. At the state level, it created a variety of new competitive grant programs, which I think a lot of the board has seen. Local partnership program is part of those, and some of those grants that I talked about in the executive director's report, they came from SB 1. In addition, in 2021, at the federal level, the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act was approved, and it also created a lot of new competitive federal programs in 21. So I'm going to walk through some of our history with those programs. So some of our successes under SB1. So STA advanced $42.5 million to Caltrans position for the Solutions for Congested Corridor program in 2018. And as a result of that advancement, Caltrans was able to position themselves such that they were awarded $15 million for Interstate 5. So the Interstate 5 project that was just completed, that goes from Elk Grove to downtown, that $50 million was used to fund the HOV lane extension. That project obviously was a much larger project, included rehabilitation, included pedestrian overcrossing in the city of Sacramento. But that is the project. That's a good success. Now, the much larger award in 2018 was the $110 million for US 50. So they used our 42.5 to get these two awards. The $110 million is for that project that's currently in construction now. One of the main goals of that project is extend the HOV lanes that just ended at Watt Avenue, take them all the way into downtown Sacramento. In addition to that, that project also improve the pavement, is going to improve the pavement, and address some vertical clearance issues at bridges. And there's a host of other improvements. Caltrans is here to answer any questions, thankfully, on the more details of that. But that's a really good project where SDA kind of helped get that project ready and get the funding. So moving forward a bit, so now SDA has prioritized and applied for local partnership programs in both 2018 and 2020. That resulted in, for the Capital Southeast Connector, they got $20 million, and for Sacramento DOT was awarded $13.3 million for South Watt. Moving up to kind of more current years here, so we did things a little different, and so SDA prioritized and applied for a US 50 Gold Line Corridor Enhancement Project. That project I talked about earlier was awarded $20 million. $10 million of that is going to Sacramento County for improvements on US 50 at Hazel Avenue, Aerojet, and Folsom Boulevard interchanges. Another $10 million is going to Sacramento Regional Transit, and that's for their Gold Line modernization. So these are all good examples of where SDA actually applied on behalf of these agencies. That's just the way this program is set up. The other thing we did that's new, that we had not done before, is SDA applied for Caltrans for the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program in 2022. So this was a new thing. They asked us to do it. The board approved that. So Caltrans was, as a result of us applying, Caltrans awarded $10 million for the I-5 Managed Lanes project. It goes from downtown Sacramento to the airport. And this is just for final design, but once this will help them move forward. So those are all really good successes under SB1 that we've currently already done. I want to highlight that. Now I'm going to give you an example of another agency who's done something similar at a federal level. So this is Yolo County Transportation District. They submitted an application for Caltrans for Rebuilding Infra program, which is a federal grant program, and Caltrans was awarded $86 million for Interstate 80. This is for managed lanes as well on the Yolo bypass between basically West Sacramento and Davis. SDA cannot do that. They do not have any sort of federal agreements in place to receive federal funds. That's why they don't apply. That's kind of why I'm bringing it up. So future grant challenges. Caltrans anticipates future opportunities at both federal and state level. However, each of these grants has kind of different criteria and eligibility requirements. So sometimes Caltrans needs to go through another agency such as SDA. So additionally, Caltrans as a statewide agency may not prioritize projects in Sacramento. A lot of times there's a prioritization in the Bay Area or LA, and they often limit their number of grants they submit to 3. So if we want a Sacramento-focused priority to move forward, another agency other than Caltrans has to submit that application. So SDA could assist Caltrans and other agencies in submitting applications that leverage Measure A dollars, but there's obviously some controls that we want in place. Approval is still needed by the STA board to apply for those grants, so we would not move forward applying unless we've gotten approval, obviously. So if an agency would ask us, we would come forward to the board for approval. We would also provide why we think it's a good idea to actually apply. There's a cost to these when you see these federal grant funds as far as administration and reporting, and so we've been lucky at the state level to the agencies that have implemented the projects and get the funding have been actually administering the grants and the reporting, and we'd like to continue that at the federal level. And then, of course, we would report on all the grants and agreements that we would get. So that is the presentation, and I'm going to bring up the recommended action, which is basically adopt a resolution authorizing the executive director to execute these agreements. There's a lot of various federal master agreements need to be in place in order for us to apply for grants, but it will allow us to do that. And I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I don't see any questions from directors. Anybody any questions on Zoom, online?
No, we do not have anyone
online
who would like to make a comment or in chambers.
No public comment?
No.
Okay. And I'll bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second by Director Maple. Please vote. Okay, thank you, Kevin.
And the motion carries by unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 9.
Item number 9 is to receive information on the activities of the Future Transportation Funding Subcommittee and related efforts.
Okay, Kevin, I'll turn it over to you again to report on our little committee.
So I don't have a formal presentation, but I think I'm just going to provide a quick kind of informational item on this. So good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Board members. So this is an information item. The staff report describes the activities of the Future Transportation Funding Subcommittee between April and June, as well as related efforts. So as a reminder, in February, the STA Governing Board created this subcommittee to look at the practicality of future transportation funding and make recommendations to the full board. The subcommittee has looked at the following topics: local transportation needs, revisions from prior efforts, practicality of future transportation funding, process, timeline, and community engagement. So this item provides a very transparent summary of the work to date. So I think this is really good to get out. And I want to thank the subcommittee members, Eric Guerra, Rosario Rodriguez, Bobby Singh Allen, Donald Terry, Rich Desmond, as well as our advisory citizen members, John Rector from who's the district representative for Operating Engineers Local Unit Number 3, as well as Deb Banks, who's the executive director of the Sacramento Area Bicycle Advocates. And then I also just wanted to quickly thank the people that came to present to the subcommittee: Nyla Pope Harden with Climate Plan, Mike McKeever, I think he was formerly with SACOG, James Corliss with SACOG, and then Michael Quigley as well. That's all I had, and I know Supervisor Desmond is the chair of the SDA and the chair of this subcommittee. You have any comments? Love to hear them.
Well, first, thank you for putting this together. I know when we initially assembled this group, I mean, the thought was that we would come with some kind of recommendation to the board, but I think we quickly realized with some of the polling efforts going on, we kind of pivoted and really just made it an opportunity to hear from a lot of different stakeholders. So I do think it was effective in that regard. I think after polling results, we can certainly reform if need be and make that recommendation. So thank you, Kevin, for your work, and thank you for my colleagues who were on that subcommittee and the other subject matter experts who contributed as well. Kevin, I had a question for you on the staff. I mean, we had a few documents that were prepared. Is this included in the staff report, or can we make these available? Some of the, like, you came and gave us a presentation on previous funding efforts, for instance. I just want to make sure those are available to STA board members.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, everything that was prepared and presented is to the subcommittee is available to the public and to the board.
Okay.
So I mean, there were verbal presentations. I didn't have those obviously, but the attachments are everything that we've been presented. So there's basically a presentation on all the prior efforts by myself. James Corliss SACOG did a presentation just on things that he wanted to see in a future measure. So he gave me a hard copy of that, so I was able to provide that. There was a separate memo that they just completed in July on which I really appreciate at my request to sort of understand what are your priorities? What are your priorities, SACOG, and what would move the needle as far as reducing VMT? And so that meant we do have that memo now. The subcommittee hasn't met and talked about that, but we do have it. And since we have it, I figured I would provide it.
Great.
So we have everything that we've done.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Director Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank my colleagues who served on the committee for this important and I know difficult issue. And I'd like to ask, I was approached several months ago by members of the business community to help fundraise and look at putting together a process in which we had polling done that I believe should be, and I think is, very unbiased, nonpartisan. It included input from regional trades and SACOG, as well as members of the business committee, including leadership with Greater Sacramento Economic Development, Economic Council, and a lot of others provided input. There was criticism that the last go-around, which did not involve this body or any other elected body, it was the quote-unquote citizens initiative, that the polling that was done was scrubbed and not unbiased, and that whatever this body decides in the future of whether or not to go forward with a measure is way up in the air at this point, obviously. But I think that the best information that we can have and the most honest and transparent information we can have to make that decision, the better. And so therefore, we went on a fundraising effort to put together polling. We did that. The poll is now on the street. taking input from many jurisdictions as far as what the poll looks like, and based upon what previous polls, not the last one, but previous polls showed us. And so I would like to, at this time, as I said, the poll is on the street. It will be complete by the end of the month. And so I would like to ask the chair and Mr. Busey to agendize a brief workshop and allow Barry Barnes, who is the consultant, and EMC, which is one of the top 2 polling agencies in the state, who is doing the polling, to come and give a transparent, publicly available workshop and give the board an opportunity to ask questions about the polling, the results, so that in the future, if we're asked to make a decision on how to move forward, we've got the most information available.
Okay. Thank you, Director Kennedy. I agree, and I'll work with Mr. Busey to make sure that's agendized. Okay, Director Guerra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank you and the members of the committee and our staff for having a conversation, and that, I think the important takeaway that came from that, and speaking with both proponents and opponents of both past measures, Measure B and Measure A, was not to rush into anything quickly. And I know that there was at least an interest in that committee to come out with something. But what was clear was there are a number of factors, including voter fatigue, questions about the economic climate, and how voters feel about that. So I want to thank Board Member Kennedy and the approach for getting the current day polling. But there were one thing that stood out significantly in each conversation, and that was engagement in the stakeholder process. And so whatever we do in the future, and if I remember when we did Measure B, the jurisdictions, the local jurisdictions, every city and county, a member of it, were involved at some point, whether it was because we got the information out near the deadline to get it on the ballot, but every jurisdiction was involved in local outreach, and I felt that was an important conversation that came about, is looking not only how the city's engaged, but how the different impacted communities can be part of that outreach process. Because if we are going to go forward, and I think we should go forward at some point at a countywide measure, that it have a very thought out method of how we're going to engage the public, so that the educational awareness of the public comes across. So again, all that to say, I wanted to thank everyone who participated in the conversation. I think there was a strong willingness to learn from the past, recognizes our differences in our points of view, but very much so the interest in how we move together in this next measure. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Guerra. I couldn't agree more on the public engagement. Okay, let's go to Director Frost.
I just wanted to ask, when we do have the report back on the polling, if we can receive the polling, including the questions and the crosstabs and the entire poll, so that we can review it prior to the workshop?
The idea was to provide complete transparency, so there will be nothing. You will get the good, the bad, and the ugly this time. Instead of last time, I believe we were just given the good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Director Frost. Director Maple.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to thank my colleagues who served on the subcommittee and for the report out. I did have one question. Appreciate the polling and looking forward to the workshop. One question I have is, obviously there's conversation happening that there might be another community-led effort as well. And so I'm wondering if that came up in your conversations at all, and if you were able to maybe get a presentation from those folks.
Well, I'll also see if Director Guerra has comments, or Director Rodriguez. But we had heard a lot of different about different efforts going on by different groups, but we never got any kind of formal presentation by someone who's spearheading one of those independent efforts.
By the time we concluded our meeting time, there hadn't been anything released. Now, subsequently, since then, we have had conversations with some of those lead efforts, but it was after our committee had already concluded. And it sounds, and at least my understanding is that that's still evolving in its state, anyways.
Okay, good to know. I think, obviously, as I said this before, I think whatever comes forth in the future, as much coordination as possible would be great. We don't want a circumstance, of course, where we might see multiple things on the ballot, and that could be very confusing for voters, and might limit the what's possible with the ballot measure. And then I just wanted to note one other thing. I did read through the analysis from SACOG, and I just really wanted to uplift some of the things that they put in here. I found it really interesting that they point to infrastructure for housing and economic development, including water and sewer and utility upgrades, as one of the key areas where we, as a region, can invest. And I had, most people wouldn't think of that in terms of transportation and what that means, but I think thinking more holistically is probably a pretty good strategy. Also wanted to lift the bus rapid transit. I think that's a great idea that I know that's being looked at Stockton Boulevard. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Director Maple. And I agree, certainly as we learn of other organized efforts, I mean, obviously all these things have to be discussed here at this board so we can make fully informed decisions about what's going on in the county, and to the extent we can coordinate our efforts, because I think there's a lot of, obviously, value in that. So, Director Hume.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize. I don't remember which speaker said this, but the admonition to be methodical about it and not rush into it. Was that you, Director Guerra? And I think that's an important takeaway because, if we continue going back to the poll every time it fails, and then the next time we just re-up and come back again, at some point the electorate is within their right and reason to say, what part of no didn't you understand last time? And we're going to wear them out and we're going to turn them off. And so I think that that's the first caveat that I would issue. And then the second thing that I looked at as a takeaway from staff's presentation, the PowerPoint, is that in 2016, we came just below the 2/3 threshold, the higher measure that we were asked to hit, with what had been a robust reckoning of how to divvy up those funds. The next effort, rather than just run that ratio again, we got in and started making sausage, and that one fizzled out because of some things that happened at the 11th hour. And then, as was mentioned, this last go-round was outside the control of this body, but nonetheless, there was considerable sausage making that happened, rather than looking at what was the ratio that almost passed to the 2/3 threshold. And so then the last thing I'll say is with respect to the comment from Director Maple and the confusion for voters. Any effort that comes out, whether it's directly or quasi from this body, has to be transportation related. And so I know that the mayor is floating something that would muddy the waters considerably, and I think would work to potentially, again, confuse voters as to which measure to get behind or what effort to get behind. So I say go forward with caution, but let's see what the polling numbers. And then the last thing I'll say is this: trust the poll. If it says people want potholes fixed, then we should put the measure to fix potholes. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hume. Director Guerra, did you have another comment?
Yes, I was remiss if I didn't thank our, I know there's a lot of credit to the members of this committee here, but we didn't thank the external members that were involved, both from the building trade side and also who have funded both of these measures, and also Deb Banks, John Rector and Deb Banks, because they have been involved in individual conversations from other ideas and other concepts and keeping us well informed. And I think that that level of engagement, I think, is important. And I may disagree a little bit with my colleague Director Hume on this, that there is maybe a role where the transportation measure does affect where we have have to rip up roads. And that's, I think, a conversation we should have. And Green Means Go is, as alluded here in the staff report, may be an option that fits that role, but it's clearly not right now within the legal purview of the STA, but it is, I think, an important conversation to have about where we're making improvements on the road. As they say, as I worked for a carpenter once, measure twice, cut once. No need to dig up the road twice. But, yeah.
Thank you, Director Guerra. Director Maple, did you have another comment? Oh, okay. Okay, well, I appreciate the discussion. We will certainly be revisiting this in the context of the poll probably at our next meeting, assuming it comes out. Any public comments or any comments from directors on Zoom?
No, sir, we don't have any public comments.
And no public comments, okay. Okay, this is a receive and file, no action necessary in this one. That moves us to item 11, and that's a closed session to discuss employee performance evaluation for our executive director. And I believe we are adjourning to room 1?
Yes, hearing room 1.
Hearing room 1, and then I'll look at our county council. Will we need to reconvene, Bill, after the closed session?
We'll need to report out whether any action or no action was taken. I can do that.
Okay.
Chair.
Closing answer.
We do have.
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted
yes, go ahead, Kevin.
We do have an item 10, which is comments from authority members.
Oh, I apologize.
I want to get that out of the way so we don't have to come back and everybody. Yeah, we can.
Director Kennedy, do you have a comment?
I do.
Any comments from directors? I apologize. Okay, seeing none. Okay, then we will adjourn to closed session.
Of the closed session, the STA. At the conclusion of the closed session, the STA board took no action. The end.